Previously on Vampire the Masquerade, Big Easy by Night. With Johnny missing, the coterie attended to their own personal business. Diane returned to his university lab to restock the various chemicals he used in cleaning up the messes of other vampires. He received word that the police had been there looking for him. He tried to do some digging, learning only that the assumption was it was connected to the uptick of rapes on campus recently. Mia attended a battered women's group. It was something that let her get in touch with the human she used to be. A group like this is where she had met Sarah, one of her touchstones. The next evening, the coterie awoke to a group message from the sheriff. Their presence was requested at court. 2 trips to Our Lady of Sorrows in 2 days. It was becoming habit-forming. Mia tried contacting Johnny, but initially received no response. He texted her back shortly after, offering no explanations for the night before, simply that he would meet them at court. Having left his van with the coterie at Jenny's, Johnny was forced to steal a truck from the trailer park, ditching it a couple blocks from the ruins of the church and walking the rest of the way. The sanctuary appeared empty. It had been removed of its setup for Elysium the night before, but a handful of pews had been set up for seating. They looked around for the sheriff briefly, before they were interrupted by the tolling of a funeral bell. The prince rose from his throne. They were certain he wasn't there a moment ago, but thanks to Silas, they were well versed in the Nosferatu ability to watch silently. Carrefour motioned for them to sit. He knew each of them by name. He had seen them networking at Elysium. He instructed them on the importance of the Camarilla and how it brought order to chaos. But it also reminded the kindred they weren't alone. Fostering relationships was important. When the Prince of Chicago asked to place a representative in New Orleans as a gesture of good faith towards some political allies, Carrefour had said yes, for the good of the Camarilla. Now the Prince of Milwaukee brought word of trouble from New Orleans finding its way to his city. For the good of the Camarilla, Carrefour was sending the coterie to investigate and clean up any mess. Due to her time living in Chicago, Mia knew a little about Milwaukee. It was Algonquin for the good land. Its prince was paranoid, enacting draconian security measures to protect the city from the Second Inquisition. Among those measures was a ban on vampires flying into or out of the city. They'd have to fly into O'Hare, which suited Mia just fine. Diane was also familiar with Milwaukee. He was sympathetic to Karna and her break from House Tremere. Mia had concerns with flying to Chicago, knowing the airports were being watched. Instead, the coterie rented a private plane, taking off from a private airstrip. While they flew, Mia filled the coterie in on the politics of Chicago. Their first stop would be checking in with the prince and letting him know that they were in his domain. Johnny sat alone at the back of the plane. He still hadn't properly dealt with his actions from the night before. When they landed in Chicago, they were greeted by J.W. Blue, a messenger from Milwaukee. He gave them a time the next evening to meet with Prince Mark Decker at County Wicklow, an Irish pub in Milwaukee owned by a local toreador. Mia assured him they wouldn't be late. The coterie rented a vehicle at the airport. If they were going to be traveling between Chicago and Milwaukee, they'd need transportation. Diane was confused why they would need to check in with Chicago's prince when they were immediately heading to Milwaukee. Mia told him that she had business to attend to in Chicago, and they'd be spending the night there first. Chicago's Succubus Club, the original, was familiar to the coterie. The New Orleans franchise looked almost identical to the original. Mia played the crowd as she made her way to the VIP section at Prince Kevin Jackson. When he saw Mia, he motioned her to come over. She explained they had business in Milwaukee but would be staying in Chicago for a couple days, and thought it prudent to announce their presence. He thanked her for remembering the rules. Their business finished at the Succubus Club. They checked in with Sierra's Diamond Yama Hotel. Like all Diamond Yama hotels in Japan and the United States, the layout was identical. The only difference was, they wouldn't be staying in the penthouse here. While the coterie got settled in, Mia met her mentor alone. The next evening, the coterie headed for their meeting in Milwaukee. At the pub, J.W. Blue led them into a private room where Prince Decker awaited them. Decker thanked them for coming, telling the coterie that his youngest child, Honor, had gone missing and he needed her found. He didn't trust the kindred of Milwaukee with his information, too many anarchs, and thus was forced to hire outside help. In exchange, he was willing to give them exclusive feeding territory in the city. The coterie agreed to help. Decker and Blue then provided the coterie with the information they had gathered thus far. Honor had a small apartment from when she was mortal. Blue had searched it and found only a 4-digit code for an abandoned bank. Honor liked to hang out with a firebrand Tremere named Tessa, who hung out near the university. Blue had seen Honor around Jones Island shortly before she disappeared. She also liked to talk about her family, so as a last resort, they could approach her mortal relatives, without breaching the Masquerade. Decker asked if the coterie had any questions. Diane was curious what leads there were on Honor's location. Mia agreed to fill him in on the way over to Honor's apartment. The apartment, on the east side, was a small one-bedroom affair containing nothing obviously noteworthy. The blackened windows in the bedroom were the only indication that a vampire lived here. Diane attempted to search the place for clues, but the beast took over, trashing the place. The only relevant piece of information they could find was the notepad JW had taken the note from. While there was no indication what the bank code written on the note meant, Diane hoped to get a premonition off the notepad. He got a vision of someone walking into a sub-basement of the bank and entering the code on an electric keypad. The coterie decided the bank was their best lead. On the way out, they ran into 2 FBI agents who demanded to know what they were doing in Honor's apartment. It seemed they were also looking for the missing girl. Mia brushed the FBI off, suggesting that the coterie were private investigators hired to find Honor. It wasn't technically a lie. The address on Honor's note led to a closed-down bank in the Lake Emily part of the city, where the rising lake level had flooded the basement. Despite its abandonment, there was still security in place. The coterie watched the pattern of the 2 guards in order to sneak past. The rotted wood of the floor collapsed beneath them, making their investigation treacherous. At last, they found the sub-basement from Diane's vision. Keying in the code from the note opened the door, revealing a rotting, half-collapsed staircase descending into the water. Thanks to their disciplines, Johnny and Diane were able to see in the darkness, but Mia was not. They left their electronics on dry ground before entering the fetid black waters. Investigating the sub-basement, it was clear that someone was living down here, their belongings kept safe in zip-locked plastic bags. Out of the corner of his eye, Diane realized they weren't alone, a small girl with a knife trying to attack Johnny from behind. Diane motioned for the stairs so they could talk peacefully. They learned she was Wren, a thin-blooded friend of Honor's who had been branded in Decker's court. She'd been attacked by werewolves and, unable to defend herself, had fled. Decker proclaimed her a coward, and now she hid here for fear of him. They asked if she had seen Honor lately, but she hadn't. She knew Honor was looking to flee the city but didn't know where. Chicago was out due to its Camarilla ties. All she knew was that Honor was going to be meeting some friends on Jones Island. To be continued.